men. And I use the term loosely, of course. Should be just a short video driven by a request to talk about why engines with the Speedo drive are supposedly less reliable, why the transmission is less reliable and prone to blowing up. And I've heard that for years. People would say that for years. And the implication was that somehow the engagement of the Speedo drive to the countershaft low gear, that this meshing was somehow causing the transmissions to blow up. And, I don't see it. There just isn't much force on this thing. And this thing doesn't put much force on the gear, so I just don't see how that's the problem. The problem, I do believe, and this is just my opinion, the problem is, in this area here, you got a big-ass hole for the Speedo drive. You got another hole for the sprocket cover bolt, and you got another hole over here for the alignment pin. And this thing is only 3/8 or half an inch from the countershaft bearing. So, there's not a lot of meat in here. Almost all of them crack along this edge, and this thing is paper thin. I'll show you that on another case where it's not broken out. But there's just not any meat over here. There's no meat over here. There's no meat over here. There's no meat over there. There's no meat over there. It's not a very substantial area. If Harley had just made this portion here a little thicker, it probably would have gone a long way to helping. When I patch these, I usually build the weldment up in this area to kind of reinforce this whole thing. But your problem is there just ain't any metal in the middle. Hole, 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 all within, a very close proximity to one another. Part B of the problem is inside the case. And obviously this case has been welded on. I don't have a good, well, I might have somewhere. I might have an unmolested one somewhere, but I don't want to dig it out right now. But anyway, this one's been welded on before, so it's had some problems and it broke. But part B of the problem is this is the countershaft bearing boss. And notice there's not much metal in this metal either. The bearing surface is just this thin ring. And it has to be like that because the gear, the spiral drive part of the gear, fits over that. And, it's the way Harley designed it, but it's the way it's designed. They wanted to get the Speedo drive crammed in there, and the only way they could figure out to do it was to make this boss correspondingly thin. So there's not a lot of support for the shaft or the bearing. And you can see this one here is cracked. Where's the crack headed? The crack is headed to where the Speedo drive hole is. So, you bang a couple of gears, you miss a couple of shifts, you downshift it hard and, let go of the clutch. It's no wonder this whole area blows out over here. So, the problem isn't the fact that the spiral drive engages the gear. The problem is the case is structurally weak in this whole area. So, let's look at a 1000cc motor and I'll show you why those are better. Okay, so here's the corresponding area on a 1000cc motor. And you'll notice, for one, there's no big hole for the Speedo drive in here. So it starts out immensely better, but still prone to failure. Here's the alignment pin hole, and you'll notice this one has got a little crack in through here, and it's got a little crack in through here. And you can see how thin the wall thickness is on the sprocket cover bolt. On the electric start bikes, this is less of a problem because the sprocket cover is just a cover. On the kickstart bikes, the sprocket cover is carrying your weight, every time you come down hard on the Kickstarter. So if I were to fix this one, and this one has got a lot of problems, so it'll probably never be fixed. But if I were to fix this one, this whole area would be built up in here just to give it a little bit more meat. But anyway, you see, crack, crack. This could crack easily. This is part of a problem. Better than a 900, but, it's missing a drive. So that's good, but still not as good as it could be. Let's look at the inside. Okay, and here is the inside of a 1000cc case. And you'll notice that this whole area, the bearing boss is the thickness of the case. It's nearly the whole width of the bearing. So you got a lot more support. But nonetheless, this one has got a crack in it. These are fairly easily repairable, and you've seen, well, if you watch my videos, you've seen them. But I bore this whole area out, I machine a new piece, and I weld it in from both sides. So this one, and this is probably one of the reasons this one won't get fixed. It's got this damage, it's got a bunch of other damage in other places. But anyway, the cumulative effect of all the damages means it's going to be expensive and difficult to repair. But anyway, this one here even has a crack in it. You see this far less often on the 1000cc motors than on the 900cc motors, but it does happen. And then look at this area down here. You see this? This is where, and I'm picking little pieces out of it, this is where somebody shoved a sprocket cover bolt in there that was too long. And they shoved it in there, and now it's breaking through the inside of the case. You got to be careful when you're picking your nuts and bolts for these things. And I've seen damage like this before. You got to be careful that your bolts are the right size. You don't want a bolt that's too long. The older parts books would give you the size of this bolt. So if there's any doubt, consult your parts manual, and if you're lucky, it'll give you the size of the bolt. But anyway, 1000cc case, much beefier. So that's really all I got for this video. My opinion why the Speedo drives are no good on a 900cc motor is there's just no beef in this area. And you throw in a missed shift or a couple of hard downshifts or whatever, and you could fracture the case in this area and blow this whole corner out. Less so on the 1000cc motors, more so on the 900cc motors. On the 900cc motors, the ones I'm building for myself, I routinely weld the drive shut, and if I'm going to run a Speedo, which I don't run Speedos a lot anyway, it's going to be a cable off the front wheel. And, why Harley did this way, I guess it was the style of the time. But anyway, that's what they did. My last words. One of the reasons I really hate these things is the son of a bitches always leak. I bought the new repo ones and they leak. I put them in customers' bikes and I get calls, that Speedo drive is leaking like a sieve. And one of the ways I've tested them, or one of the ways they can be tested, is I'll get a piece of rubber hose and clamp it on here over this end, and then clamp the other end of the rubber hose to my air line, and I'll run the pressure regulator down to 4 or 5 psi is all it takes, and then I'll spray soapy water in here, and this thing will blow bubbles. I've cut them apart so I could see what's going on in there, and there's you can't take them apart because the damn gear is welded to the end of the shaft. They don't come apart without destroying them. There's just a rubber seal in here, and of course it's on the bottom of the motor. All the dirt, all the crud, all the grunge gets kicked up, it gets inside there, and somewhat surprisingly, it grinds away at the shaft. Like I said, I've taken a couple apart, I've cut them apart just to see what the hell's going on in there. And the shaft where it passes through the rubber seal is just all necked down a lot, like many thousandths of an inch, 20, 30, 40, 50 thousandths is just eaten away, I assume from all the crud that gets in there. So in a way, this kind of is the root of your problem, because they always leak, which means the trans is always low on fluid, which means it's not getting lubed the way it's supposed to be getting lubed. And, you know, no oil in something like this, it ain't going to last long until you develop too much wear, too much friction, and something blows inside the gearbox. And I guess with that, I am out of here. Y'all have a good one. We'll see you later. Take it easy.